Clara Vance's hands didn't shake as she logged into her banking app. They should have. Her husband was standing over her shoulder, his breath hot with rage and entitlement, watching her prepare to transfer $80,000, every penny she'd saved over 15 years, to fund a birthday party for the woman he was sleeping with. "Hurry up," Simon Thorne snapped, checking his Rolex for the third time in 2 minutes. "The payment's due in an hour, or we lose the venue. And Clara, if you're thinking about being difficult, remember, I can file for divorce tomorrow, and you'll get nothing. You've never worked a real job in your life. You'd be destitute." Clara's finger hovered over the confirm transfer button. She looked up at her husband of 20 years, this man who'd called her a kept woman at dinner parties, who'd introduced her as just a housewife to colleagues, who'd spent the last decade making her feel small and worthless and utterly disposable. "You're right," she said softly. "I should transfer it now." Simon's face lit with triumph. He had no idea he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had no idea his useless wife was about to destroy him in the most spectacular way imaginable. And he definitely had no idea that the Grand Beaumont Hotel, where he was planning to celebrate his mistress's birthday in 3 days, was owned by the woman he'd just threatened to make destitute. But he was about to find out. Stop right there. Before we dive deeper into how Clara absolutely demolishes her cheating husband, and trust me, what she does is so brilliant, so perfectly executed, you're going to be screaming at your screen, I need you to do something for me. First, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments right now. I want to see how far the story reaches, and I read every single comment. Seriously, everyone. Your voice matters here. Second, how are you doing today? No, really. I actually want to know. Are you going through something similar? Have you ever felt underestimated? Taken for granted? Drop a comment and let me know. This community supports each other, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Third, and this is crucial asterisk, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, hit that subscribe button like your life depends on it. Because here's the truth. I release stories like this regularly, and the revenge Clara serves up in this story is so deliciously perfect, so absolutely devastating to everyone who underestimated her, that you cannot miss how this unfolds. And here's the thing. YouTube's algorithm is brutal. If you don't subscribe, you might never see part 2. You might never find out what Clara does when she walks into that ballroom. You might never witness the moment Simon realizes he's been played. And that would be a tragedy, because what happens next is the most satisfying plot twist you'll see all year. So do this. Hit subscribe. Smash that like button so hard it breaks. And drop a comment telling me what you would do in Clara's position. Would you transfer that money? Would you walk away? Or would you do exactly what Clara's about to do, which is execute the most perfect revenge in the history of marriage betrayals? I'm waiting. Subscribe now. Then let's get back to the moment Clara's world either ends or transforms into something far more powerful. Asterisk, asterisk, are you ready? Because what you're about to witness will restore your faith in karma. Let's continue. The transfer went through at 4:47 p.m. Simon actually hooped like he'd won something, when the confirmation appeared on Clara's screen. Finally. God, that took forever. You'd think transferring money from your little safety net wouldn't be so complicated. He grabbed his jacket, already heading for the door. I've got to meet with the event coordinator. Don't wait up. Event coordinator. That's what he was calling Lena now. Clara sat perfectly still in the home office of the house she'd bought but put in Simon's name. The house he believed he owned. just like he believed he owned her. "Simon," she called out, her voice perfectly calm. "Will I be invited to this party?" He actually laughed, threw his head back and laughed like she'd told the world's funniest joke. "You? At Lena's birthday party? Clara, sweetheart, you'd be completely out of place. These are sophisticated people. Social climbers, influencers, business moguls. Not." He waved his hand dismissively at her yoga pants and oversized sweater. "Whatever this is. Besides, you'd be uncomfortable. Trust me, I'm doing you a favor." "Of course." How thoughtful. Clara's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Where did you say it was being held?" "The Grand Beaumont. The main ballroom. Cost a fortune to book, but Lena deserves the best." Simon paused at the door, his expression shifting to something almost pitying. "Look, I know this is hard for you. But Clara, you have to face reality. We've grown apart. You're still living like it's 2005. No ambition, no drive, just your little online thing that barely makes enough to cover your coffee habit. I need someone who matches my energy. Someone who understands the lifestyle I've built for us." "The lifestyle you've built," Clara repeated slowly. "Yes, I see. Exactly. So just stay home. Do your hobby thing. Maybe make some Pinterest crafts or whatever it is you do all day. And Clara?" He smiled, and it was the smile of a man who believed he held all the cards. "Start thinking about where you'll live after the divorce. Because I'm keeping the house. You understand, right? I paid for it." The door closed behind him with a soft click. Clara sat in silence for exactly 30 seconds. Then she opened her laptop, not the old Dell she used for her hobby business, but the encrypted MacBook Pro she kept locked in a drawer Simon had never thought to search. She pulled up the executive dashboard for Solstice Logistics. Current valuation, $3.2 billion. Properties under management, 847 venues across 6 continents, including, of course, the Grand Beaumont hotel chain. All 17 locations. Clara opened her encrypted messaging system and composed a message to Marcus Webb, her COO, one of only 3 people in the world who knew her real identity. *Marcus, I need you to pull the file on the Rossi party. Grand Beaumont main ballroom, 3 days from now. And Marcus? It's time. Activate Protocol 7. Protocol 7. The contingency plan she'd created years ago, but never thought she'd actually use. The plan that would reveal exactly who Clara Vance really was. The plan that would teach Simon Thorne that the woman he'd spent 20 years underestimating was actually the most powerful person he'd ever met. The plan that would turn his moment of triumph into his complete annihilation. Marcus's response came within seconds. Finally. I've been waiting for this. Consider it done, boss. Clara closed her laptop and walked to the closet Simon never entered because he assumed it only contained her frumpy housewife clothes. In the back, behind the yoga pants and oversized sweaters, hung a Tom Ford suit she'd had custom-made 6 months ago. Just in case. Next to it, a pair of Louboutin heels that cost more than Simon's car payment. And in a locked box on the shelf above, a platinum business card that simply read, Clara Vance, founder and CEO, Solstice Logistics. Clara had spent 20 years being invisible, being dismissed, being treated like an accessory to Simon's mediocre life. In 3 days, at the party he'd funded with her money, in the ballroom owned by her company, in front of everyone he wanted to impress, Clara was going to become very, very visible. And Simon Thorne was going to learn what it felt like to have everything taken from you by the person you'd most underestimated. The countdown had begun. I need to know. Are you screaming yet? Because I'm screaming as well. Drop a comment right now telling me what you think Clara should do to Simon. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe, like, comment. Let's build this community of people who believe underestimated women are the most dangerous force on earth. 20 years ago, Clara Vance had been a different person entirely. At 25, she'd been fresh out of business school with a degree in hospitality management and a head full of dreams that her professors had called unrealistic and overly ambitious. She'd wanted to revolutionize the luxury events industry, to create a company that managed high-end venues with the precision of a military operation and the elegance of a five-star hotel. She'd pitched her concept to 17 investors. All 17 had turned her down. Too young, they'd said. Too inexperienced. Come back when you've worked in the industry for 10 years, and we'll reconsider. But Clara didn't have 10 years to waste working for someone else's vision. So she'd done something crazy. She'd taken the $50,000 inheritance from her grandmother and started Solstice Logistics from her studio apartment. That first year had been brutal. 18-hour days, living on ramen and coffee, cold calling venues and event planners until her voice went hoarse. Her first client had been a small art gallery that needed help coordinating a show opening. She'd charged them $500 and worked like it was $1 million contract. The gallery owner had been so impressed she'd referred Clara to a friend. Then that friend had referred her to another. Then another. By year 3, Clara was managing events for minor celebrities. By year 5, she was coordinating luxury weddings for tech billionaires. By year 7, she'd purchased her first venue, a struggling historic mansion in Napa Valley that she'd transformed into the most exclusive event space on the West Coast. And by year 10, when she was 35 years old, Clara Vance had built Solstice Logistics into a billion-dollar empire. She'd done it all in complete anonymity. No press releases.
No magazine profiles.
No social media presence. She'd structured the company through a web of LLCs and trusts, keeping her name off every public document. Her clients knew her only as the director, a mysterious figure who appeared at high-stakes events, ensured everything ran flawlessly, then vanished before anyone could snap a photo. In the luxury events world, the director was a legend. People whispered about her like she was a ghost or a myth. Some of the most powerful people in the world had used her services without ever learning her real name. And Clara had liked it that way. Privacy was power. Anonymity was armor. Then she'd met Simon Thorne at a charity gala she'd been coordinating. He'd been charming that night. Funny, attentive, seemingly impressed by her intelligence rather than threatened by it. When he'd asked what she did for a living, Clara had been vague. I work in event management, she'd said, which was technically true. That's great. Simon had responded with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm. You must meet so many interesting people. I'm in supply chain logistics myself. Nothing as exciting as your work, but it pays the bills. They dated for 6 months before he proposed. And in those 6 months, Clara had fallen in love with the version of Simon he'd presented. Supportive, kind, someone who seemed to appreciate her for who she was rather than what she could provide. She'd been so stupidly, blindly in love that she'd made a decision she'd been regretting for 15 years. She'd told Simon she was going to step back from the business world, to focus on family. She'd hired Marcus Webb as COO, given him operational control, and structured the company so that her involvement was completely behind the scenes. Emails only, encrypted. invisible to the world, including Simon. Clara Vance became a stay-at-home wife who'd left her small event planning business to support her husband's career. The transformation had started slowly. At first, Simon had been supportive of Clara's decision to work from home. But over the years, his attitude had shifted. He'd started making comments about her not working anymore. Started taking credit for their lifestyle at dinner parties, implying he was the
sole breadwinner.
Clara keeps the home fires burning while I handle the real world, he'd say with a patronizing smile, like she was a 1950s housewife whose only purpose was to make him look good. Clara had let him think that. Had let him build his ego on the false foundation of her supposed dependence. Because staying invisible meant protecting her company from his interference, his opinions, his need to take credit for things he hadn't built. But the price of that invisibility had been high. 20 years of being talked down to. 20 years of having her intelligence dismissed. 20 years of being introduced as Simon's wife, instead of by her own name. And worst of all, 20 years of watching the man she'd married transform from charming to cruel, from supportive to condescending, from partner to tyrant. The affairs had started 5 years ago. Clara had known about each one, had access to bank statements Simon thought were private, had seen the charges for hotel rooms, jewelry, romantic dinners at restaurants they'd never visited together. She'd considered divorce, had even drafted papers. But something had held her back. Call it pride, call it strategy, call it the knowledge that leaving too soon would mean splitting assets and giving Simon half of everything she'd built. So Clara had waited, had documented everything, had transferred assets, restructured companies, moved money into accounts Simon didn't know existed. And she'd opened that small savings account, the one Simon mocked, the one he thought contained her emergency fund of maybe $100,000 at most. In reality, that account was linked to a Cayman Islands trust worth $847 million. The savings account Simon could see held exactly $80,000, a deliberate number Clara had chosen specifically for this purpose. Because Clara Vance hadn't become a billionaire by being careless. She'd become a billionaire by being patient, strategic, and always 3 steps ahead of everyone else in the room, including her husband, especially her husband. She'd known this moment was coming, had felt it building like a storm on the horizon. Simon was getting bolder, more careless, more confident in his power over her. The affair with Lena had been different from the others, more public, more expensive, more insulting in its obviousness. And when Marcus had sent her the alert 3 weeks ago, that someone named Simon Thorne had booked the Grand Beaumont Ballroom for a private event, specifically requesting that the booking be handled without going through the director, Clara had known. This was it. This was the moment Simon would push too far. This was when the careful house of cards she'd built around her fake life would either collapse or transform into something far more powerful. Now, sitting in her home office while Simon celebrated with his mistress somewhere across the city, Clara pulled up the full file on Lena's party. The event was scheduled for Saturday night. 200 guests. Full catering, live band, premium bar package, and a photography team to capture every moment for Lena's social media empire. Total cost, $175,000. Simon had put down a $95,000 deposit months ago, draining their joint credit accounts in the process. The final payment of $80,000 was due today. He'd used Clara's savings to cover it, never knowing that the payment had gone directly into an account that fed back into Solstice Logistics' revenue stream. Essentially, Simon had just paid Clara $80,000 to host his mistress's birthday party at a venue Clara owned. The irony was almost too perfect. Clara opened her secure messaging system and sent another message to Marcus. I want a full audit of every service Simon booked. Catering, entertainment, decorations, everything. And Marcus? I want to know exactly how much of his own money he spent versus how much he's stolen from joint accounts. Marcus's response came quickly, already on it. Preliminary numbers show he's drained $340,000 from joint credit cards over the past 6 months. Jewelry for Lena, trips to Paris and Santorini, a lease on a Mercedes he told you was a company car. The man's been living a double life on what he thinks is his money. But it's not his money, Clara typed back. The house is in a trust one control. The cars are leased through shell companies I own. Even his precious career. Did you finish the background check? Marcus sent a laughing emoji. You're going to love this. Simon's mid-level management position is at a company that's a subsidiary of a company that's owned by a holding company that's owned by Solstice Logistics, Clara finished. I know. I acquired them 4 years ago specifically because Simon wouldn't shut up about how important he was there. So technically you're his boss. Technically, I'm his boss's boss's boss. Clara allowed herself a small smile. Does he know the company changed hands? The acquisition was structured to be invisible to employees. As far as Simon knows, he works for an independent firm and his job is secure because he's indispensable.
Perfect. Keep it that way. For now.
Clara closed the laptop and walked to the window. Outside, the Los Angeles skyline glittered in the evening light. Somewhere out there, Simon was probably toasting to his clever manipulation of his stupid, naive wife. He had no idea that his stupid, naive wife owned the building where he was likely celebrating, owned the restaurant where he'd probably taken Lena to dinner, owned the company where he worked and the car he drove and the lifestyle he'd convinced himself he'd earned. And in 3 days, in front of 200 witnesses, Simon Thorne was going to learn a lesson that powerful men throughout history had somehow never managed to absorb. Never underestimate a quiet woman. Because her silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. And when she finally decides to speak, the world shifts on its axis. Clara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She almost didn't open it, but something made her click. Can't wait for you to see Lena's face when she sees the ballroom. The Grand Beaumont is perfect. Thank you so much for being understanding about the money situation. I know it wasn't easy for you to drain your savings, but this is going to be the party of the year. You should be proud that you contributed to something so special. As Clara read the message 3 times, feeling rage build in her chest with each word. You should be proud that you contributed. Proud that she'd funded his infidelity. Proud that she'd enabled his betrayal. Proud that she'd made his mistress's dream party possible. She typed back, I'll see you there, Simon. His response came immediately, what?
No.
I told you you're not invited. This isn't your scene. Clara smiled, cold and sharp. I insist. I'll be there. Saturday night. 8 p.m. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Don't make this weird, Clara. Just stay home.
She didn't respond.
Just set her phone down and returned to her laptop, pulling up the guest list for Lena's party. 200 names. Influencers, minor celebrities, Simon's co-workers, Lena's friends. All of them expecting the party of the year. All of them about to witness the most spectacular implosion of a man's life in social media history. Clara opened a new document and began typing. Not a revenge plan. She was too sophisticated for that. This was a strategic operation, planned with the same precision she brought to billion-dollar venue acquisitions. By the time she finished, it was past midnight. But Clara had a complete blueprint for Saturday night. Every detail mapped out, every contingency planned for, every possible reaction anticipated and countered. She'd spent 20 years being invisible, being dismissed, being treated like furniture in her own life. On Saturday night, Clara Vance was going to become the most visible person in that ballroom. And Simon Thorne was going to wish, desperately, devastatingly, that he'd appreciated his quiet wife when he had the chance. Because quiet women, when they finally decide to roar, bring down empires. And Simon's empire was about to crumble to dust. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who should have known better? Someone who thought you were weak when you were actually just being patient? Drop a comment and tell me your story. And if you're absolutely invested in seeing Simon get what he deserves, make sure you're subscribed because next is where Clara starts making her moves. And trust me, every single step is perfection. The next morning, Clara woke to find Simon's side of the bed empty. Not unusual. He'd been spending most nights working late for the past 6 months, which was code for staying at the apartment Clara's private investigator had confirmed he was renting for Lena. What was unusual was the manila envelope sitting on the kitchen counter with her name on it. Clara opened it with steady hands, already knowing what she'd find inside. Divorce papers. Filed, official, and ruthlessly one-sided. According to the documents, Simon was filing for divorce on grounds of irreparable differences and financial incompatibility. He was requesting the house, both cars, and a settlement of $50,000 for Clara to begin her new life.
$50,000.
After 20 years of marriage, the house she'd bought was valued at $2.4 million. The cars, both of which were leased through her shell companies, were worth $180,000 combined. He was offering her approximately 2% of what he thought the marital assets were worth. But the truly insulting part was the letter paperclip to the front page, written in Simon's hasty scrawl. Clara, I've tried to make this work, but we both know you've been holding me back for years. You're comfortable with mediocrity. I'm not. I need a partner who matches my ambition and understands the level I'm operating at. Lena is that partner. I'm filing for divorce immediately, and I expect you to sign these papers without causing drama. You'll get enough money to rent a small apartment and start over. That's more than fair considering you haven't contributed financially to this marriage in over a decade. Be grateful I'm being this generous. Sign by Friday or I'll reduce the settlement to $25,000. Your choice. As Clara read the letter 3 times, her coffee going cold in her hand. Be grateful. Sign by Friday. Your choice. She pulled out her phone and called Marcus. He filed, she said without preamble when he answered. Perfect. Did he use Davidson and Associates like we predicted? How did you know? Because Davidson and Associates is a mid-tier firm that specializes in fast, ugly divorces for men who want to screw over their wives. They're good at intimidation, not so good at actual legal strategy. Marcus sounded pleased, which means they did minimal asset investigation. They have no idea what you actually own. The settlement offer is $50,000. Marcus whistled. Ballsy. Stupid, but ballsy. Does he really think you're going to just sign away everything? He thinks I have no choice. He thinks I'm financially dependent on him and too scared to fight. Clara walked to the window, looking out at the pool Simon had insisted on installing 2 years ago, on her dime, though he didn't know it. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Name it. I want you to accept the booking for Lena's party. Officially. As the director. I want a contract with my signature on it, my real signature, the one Simon has never seen, delivered to him today. Clara, if you reveal yourself before the party. I'm not revealing myself. The contract will be signed, C. Vance, Director of Operations, Solstice Logistics. Simon doesn't know my middle initial. He barely pays attention to my name at all. To him, C. Vance is just another corporate functionary. Clara's smile was sharp. But when Saturday night comes, when I walk into that ballroom and introduce myself, he's going to remember that contract. He's going to realize his wife's signature has been in front of him for 3 days, and he never saw it. That's cold. That's strategic. Send the contract. And Marcus? Include the clause. There was a pause. The termination clause? Clara, are you sure? If you invoke that at the party, I won't need to invoke it. Simon will. Clara's voice was certain. He's going to do exactly what entitled men always do when they're cornered. He's going to make threats, get aggressive, probably try to have me removed from the venue. And when he does, the termination clause will activate automatically. Every penny he's paid becomes non-refundable. The party gets shut down, and he's liable for damages. You're not just planning to humiliate him. You're planning to bankrupt him. I'm planning to show him exactly what happens when you underestimate someone for 2 decades. Humiliation is just a side effect. After hanging up with Marcus, Clara did something she hadn't done in 15 years. She called her sister. Diane Vance Morrison answered on the 3rd ring. Clara? Is everything okay? You never call me during business hours. I need a favor. Anything. What's wrong? Simon filed for divorce. He's offering me $50,000 and expects me to sign by Friday. Silence on the other end. Then, that motherf, Diane,
saw the...
But Clara, seriously? 50,000? After 20 years? After everything you've... Diane stopped herself. She was one of the 3 people who knew the truth about Solstice Logistics. What are you going to do? I'm going to give him exactly what he's asking for. I'm going to sign the papers.
What?
Clara, no. And then I'm going to attend his mistress's birthday party on Saturday night and introduce myself to 200 witnesses as the CEO of the company that owns the venue, the catering service, the entertainment agency, and the building where Simon works. Diane was quiet for a moment. Then she started laughing. Oh my God, you're going to destroy him. I'm going to reveal the truth. What happens after that is on him. Clara pulled out the divorce papers. But I need you to do something for me first. I need you to tell Mom. Tell Mom what? Everything. That I didn't actually give up my career. That I've been running a billion-dollar company from home for the past 20 years. That Simon has been living off my money while telling everyone he's the breadwinner. Clara's voice softened. I know she was disappointed when I stepped back from the business. I know she thought I was throwing away my potential for a man. I need her to know she was right to worry. She's going to kill Simon. She's going to have to get in line.
Can you tell her today?
I want her at the party on Saturday. Front row seat. Clara Vance, you beautiful, terrifying genius. Consider it done. Diane paused. Are you okay? Really? I'm better than okay. For the first time in 20 years, I'm not pretending to be someone smaller than I am. It feels... Clara searched for the word. Liberating. After ending the call, Clara made 2 more phone calls. One to her lawyer, Helena Price, who was even more ruthless than Elena Abbott and specialized in high-net-worth divorces. The second was to her accountant, confirming that all assets were properly secured in trusts and LLCs that Simon couldn't touch. Then she did something that felt both petty and completely necessary. She signed the divorce papers. All of them. Without changes. Without negotiation. She scanned them, emailed them to Simon's lawyer, and sent Simon a text. Paper signed. You're free. Good luck with your new life. His response came within minutes, finally. I knew you'd be reasonable. This is better for both of us, Clara. You'll see.
She didn't respond.
Just set her phone aside and opened her laptop to make final preparations for Saturday night. The contract from Solstice Logistics was delivered to Simon's office at 2 p.m. Clara knew because she had access to the building's security cameras, one of the perks of owning the property. She watched Simon open the envelope, scan the contract without really reading it, and sign with a flourish. He handed it back to the courier with a smug smile, probably feeling very important that the director had personally approved his event. If he'd bothered to read page 7, section 12, subsection 4, he would have found the termination clause. In the event of harassment, threats, or attempted removal of Solstice Logistics personnel from the premises during an event, this contract shall be immediately terminated. All fees paid become non-refundable, the event shall be shut down, and the client shall be liable for damages including but not limited to staff time, lost revenue, and reputational harm. Damages to be assessed at Solstice Logistics' sole discretion. But Simon didn't read contracts carefully. He never had. It was one of many things about him that Clara had documented over the years. She'd built her entire career on reading the fine print, on understanding that power came from knowing things other people overlooked. And Simon had overlooked everything about her for 2 decades. That oversight was about to cost him everything he thought he'd won. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Clara's transformation happened in stages, each one deliberate and strategic. On Thursday, she went to the salon, not her usual budget place in the strip mall, but the exclusive studio on Rodeo Drive where celebrities got their hair done. She told them to give her something powerful. They gave her a sleek bob with subtle highlights that took 10 years off her appearance and added an edge she'd been hiding under her usual ponytail. On Friday, she visited the stylist Marcus had recommended, a woman who dressed tech CEOs and corporate raiders. Together, they selected an outfit that would make a statement, a midnight blue Tom Ford pantsuit that fit like armor, paired with Louboutin heels and jewelry that was elegant but clearly expensive. You look like you could buy and sell everyone in the room, the stylist said approvingly. That's because I can, Clara replied with a smile. Friday evening, Clara's mother arrived. Patricia Vance was 72 years old, barely 5 feet tall, and had the kind of steel spine that had carried her through raising 3 daughters as a single mother while building her own accounting firm. She took one look at Clara's new appearance and burst into tears. I knew it, Patricia said, pulling Clara into a fierce hug. I knew you couldn't have just given up. I knew you were still fighting. I never stopped fighting, Mom. I just fought quietly. That bastard Simon. I never liked him. Too smooth. Too sure of himself. Patricia pulled back, her eyes sharp. Diane told me everything. The company, the money, the affairs. Clara, why did you stay? Why did you let him treat you like that? Because leaving too soon would have meant splitting assets. Because divorce laws favor the spouse who can prove financial contribution, and Simon thought he was the only one contributing. Because Clara's voice broke slightly. Because I was building a case, documenting everything, making sure that when I finally left, he couldn't take anything from me. Not the money, not my dignity, not my future. Patricia's expression shifted from concern to fierce pride. When you were 5 years old, you told me you were going to build an empire. I didn't realize you meant it literally. You taught me that power isn't loud. It's patient. It waits for the right moment. Clara smiled. Tomorrow night is the right moment. Saturday morning arrived with California sunshine and a text from Simon that made Clara's blood boil. I noticed you signed the divorce papers. Smart choice. Just so you know, I'm keeping the wedding china and your grandmother's pearls. You won't need them where you're going. Consider it a goodbye gift to myself. See you never. As her grandmother's pearls. The ones that had been in the family for 4 generations. The ones Patricia had given Clara on her wedding day with tears in her eyes. Clara called Marcus. Change of plans. I want a full asset seizure ready to execute the moment I give the signal tomorrow night. Everything Simon thinks he owns, the house, the cars, the furniture, down to the last fork. If it was purchased with my money, I want it cataloged and seized. Clara, that's going nuclear. He took my grandmother's pearls, Marcus. He doesn't get to steal my memories and walk away clean. Her voice was ice. Get it done. Consider it done. And Clara? He's going to regret every dismissive word he ever said to you. Yes, Clara agreed. He is. That evening, Clara stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, adjusting her suit jacket. The woman looking back at her was unrecognizable from the person she'd been a week ago, or rather, she was finally recognizable as the person Clara had always been underneath the disguise. Powerful.
Strategic.
Absolutely done with being invisible. Her phone buzzed with messages from the team she'd assembled. Marcus confirming that security was in place at the Grand Beaumont. Helena confirming that the legal documents were ready to be executed. Patricia confirming that she'd arrived at the hotel and secured a front row table. And then one final message from Diane. Go get him, sis. Make it legendary. Clara picked up her clutch, which contained not makeup but rather business cards, legal documents, and a USB drive with 20 years of evidence, and headed for the door. The Grand Beaumont Hotel was 20 minutes away. In 20 minutes, she'd walk into a party funded by her money, held at her venue, celebrating her husband's mistress. And in 20 minutes, Simon Thorne's world was going to end. Not with a whisper, but with a roar that would echo across social media for months. Clara Vance was done being quiet, and the silence she was about to shatter was going to bury everyone who'd ever underestimated her. What would you do if you discovered your spouse filed for divorce while planning a party for their mistress using your money? Would you stay quiet or burn it all down? Drop a comment and let me know. And if you're absolutely living for Clara's revenge, make sure you subscribe because next is where she walks into that ballroom, and what happens next will make you stand up and cheer. You cannot miss this. The Grand Beaumont Hotel was exactly as spectacular as Clara had designed it to be. She'd acquired the property 6 years ago when it was a struggling historic building on the verge of foreclosure. She'd poured $12 million into restoration, turning it into the crown jewel of Los Angeles event venues. Architectural Digest had called it a masterpiece of old-world elegance meeting modern luxury. Vogue had featured it in their most exclusive party destinations list. Simon had no idea his wife owned the building he'd bragged about booking for weeks. Clara's heels clicked against the marble floors as she entered through the side entrance, the one reserved for VIP guests and, more importantly, the one that led directly to the owner's private viewing area. She'd had it installed specifically for occasions when she wanted to observe events without being seen. Through the one-way glass, she could see the main ballroom in all its glory. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over tables draped in ivory silk. Massive floral arrangements, roses, peonies, orchids, each costing more than most people's monthly rent, created a garden atmosphere. A 12-piece orchestra played softly in the corner. Champagne towers sparkled under strategic lighting. It was objectively perfect. Exactly the kind of event Solstice Logistics was famous for creating. And it had cost Simon every penny he could scrape together, plus $80,000 of Clara's savings. Boss. Marcus appeared at her elbow, tablet in hand. Final headcount is 187 guests. Lena's photographer is set up in the east corner. And your mother is at table 3 with what I can only describe as a predatory expression. Clara glanced down at table 3, where Patricia Vance sat in an elegant burgundy dress, sipping champagne and watching Simon with the focus of a hawk spotting prey. Where's Simon now? Greeting guests at the entrance with Lena, playing the doting boyfriend. He's already told approximately 15 people that he personally negotiated with the director to secure this venue. Marcus's expression was carefully neutral. Should I be offended that he thinks he negotiated with me? Be flattered. It means our security protocols are working perfectly. Clara adjusted her jacket.
What?
About the photographer? Yours or theirs? Both. Lena's photographer is capturing every moment for her Instagram empire. She's already posted 6 stories about the party of the century. Your photographer is positioned to capture everything that happens when you make your entrance. Video and stills, high resolution from 3 angles. Good. I want documentation of every second. Marcus pulled up something on his tablet. One more thing you should know. Simon's been drinking. Heavily. He's already had 4 glasses of champagne, and he's getting louder with each one. He just told a group of his coworkers that he finally got rid of the dead weight and can start living the life he deserves. Clara felt something cold settle in her chest. Dead weight. 20 years of marriage reduced to dead weight. Perfect, she said, her voice steady. Drunk Simon is careless Simon. He'll make this easier. When are you making your entrance? Clara checked her watch. 8:17 p.m. The party had been going for just over an hour. Lena would be expecting her big moment, probably a champagne toast, maybe a special announcement. Simon would be feeling confident, untouchable. Give it 15 more minutes. Let them get comfortable. Let Simon have a few more drinks. Let Lena bask in her moment. Clara's smile was sharp. And then I'll remind them both who actually owns this moment. She spent those 15 minutes watching the party unfold below. Watched Lena work the room in a dress that probably cost $15,000, paid for with money Simon had stolen from joint accounts. Watched Simon hold court with his coworkers, laughing too loud, touching Lena's waist possessively. Watched him be everything with her that he'd stopped being with Clara years ago. Attentive, affectionate, present. It should have hurt. Maybe a year ago it would have. But standing here in her Tom Ford suit, in the building she owned, watching a party she'd essentially funded and organized without even trying, Clara felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Simon hadn't fallen out of love with her. He'd never loved her at all. He'd loved the idea of her, the supportive wife who made him look good, who stayed quiet while he took credit for everything, who asked for nothing and accepted less. The moment Clara had stopped being useful to his ego, she'd become disposable.
Well,
He was about to learn what disposable actually felt like. At 8:32 p.m., Clara nodded to Marcus. It's time. She left the owner's viewing area and walked down the curved staircase that led to the ballroom's main entrance. The same entrance where guests had been arriving all evening. The same entrance where Simon currently stood with Lena, greeting late arrivals. Clara paused at the top of the stairs, visible to anyone who happened to look up. She didn't announce herself, didn't make noise, just stood there, backlit by the chandelier above, waiting for someone to notice. It was Patricia who saw her first. Her mother's face split into a fierce grin, and she raised her champagne glass in a silent salute. Then Diane, sitting at the same table, followed Patricia's gaze and actually laughed out loud. The sound caught the attention of nearby guests, who turned to see what was funny. They looked up, saw Clara. The whispers started immediately. Who is that? I don't know, but that suit is Tom Ford. She looks important. Is she supposed to be here? The whispers spread like ripples across water. More people turned. More people stared. The orchestra, sensing a shift in the room's energy, let their current song fade into silence. And in that silence, Clara began to descend the stairs. Every eye in the room turned to her. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd walked into 1,000 high-stakes events, who'd commanded rooms full of billionaires and celebrities, who'd built an empire from nothing and knew exactly what she was worth. She looked, in that moment, like exactly what she was, the most powerful person in the building. Simon saw her halfway down the stairs. His face went from confusion to shock to fury in the space of 3 seconds. Clara? His voice cracked across the sudden quiet. What the hell are you doing here? I told you. You told me I wasn't invited. Clara reached the bottom of the stairs, her heels clicking against marble with perfect precision. You were right. I wasn't invited. I don't need an invitation to my own property. The confusion in the room was palpable. Whispers intensified. Lena stepped forward, her expression hostile. Your property? Simon, who is this woman? Why is she? I'm his wife, Clara said clearly, her voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. Well, ex-wife as of yesterday. The divorce papers were filed on Monday, signed by me on Wednesday. I'm sure Simon told you all about it. Lena's face went pale. Wife. Simon, you said you were divorced 2 years ago. Funny, Clara interrupted smoothly. Since we were still living together as of last weekend. Still sharing a bank account he was draining to fund this party. Still married in every legal sense until 72 hours ago. The whispers exploded into actual conversation. Phones came out. People started filming. Simon's face had gone from pale to red. Clara, you need to leave. Right now. Before I have security. Have security do what, exactly? Clara smiled. And it wasn't kind. Remove me from my own building? That would be fascinating to watch. Your building? Simon laughed, but it sounded forced. Stop being delusional. This is the Grand Beaumont Hotel. You can't afford to stay here as a guest, let alone own it. Can I? Clara reached into her clutch and pulled out a business card. She held it up so the nearest guests could see it, knowing the cameras would catch it, knowing it would be all over social media within minutes. Clara Vance, founder and CEO Solstice Logistics. For those of you who don't know, Clara said, addressing the room now instead of Simon, Solstice Logistics is the largest luxury venue management company in the world. We manage 847 properties across 6 continents, including this one. including, actually, all 17 Grand Beaumont locations worldwide. The silence that followed was absolute. Simon's face had gone beyond red to something approaching purple. That's impossible. You're a housewife. You run some little online hobby business that barely makes enough for coffee money. Is that what you thought? Clara's laugh was genuine now. Simon, I've been running a billion-dollar company from our home office for the past 20 years. The hobby business you mocked so relentlessly? That was my cover. A convenient explanation for why I was always on my laptop, always taking calls, always busy with things you were too self-absorbed to ask about. She walked further into the room, commanding it effortlessly. Every event you've attended here, every gala, every corporate function, I organized them. Or rather, my company did. That charity auction you bragged about attending last month?
Mine.
The tech conference where you networked with important people?
Mine.
Even the building where you work. Don't, Simon said, his voice desperate now. Clara, don't. Harrison Tech Solutions, the company where you've worked for 12 years, is a subsidiary of Venture Holdings LLC, which is owned by Strategic Partners Group, which is owned by Solstice Logistics. Clara's smile widened. I'm not just your ex-wife, Simon. I'm your employer. Have been for 4 years. Ever since I acquired Harrison Tech as part of a larger portfolio purchase. Someone in the crowd actually gasped. Phones were definitely recording now. This was going to be everywhere by morning. Lena had gone from pale to green. Simon, you said you were rich. You said you were important, that you were paying for all of this. I did pay for it. Simon's voice rose to something approaching a shout. I paid $175,000 for this event. With money stolen from joint accounts, Clara interrupted calmly. Money that was actually mine to begin with, since the salary you think you earn comes from a company I own. So essentially, Simon, you paid for this party with my money at my venue to celebrate your mistress, while simultaneously filing for divorce and trying to take my house and my cars and my grandmother's pearls. She pulled out her phone, pulled up a photo, and held it up. These pearls, to be specific. The ones your text message this morning said you were keeping as a goodbye gift to yourself. The ones that have been in my family for 4 generations. The ones that are currently in a safe in my house, awaiting police collection as part of a theft investigation I filed this afternoon. The room had gone from shocked to riveted. This wasn't just a confrontation. This was entertainment. Drama. The kind of story people would tell for years. Simon was shaking now. Whether from rage or fear, Clara couldn't tell. You have no right to. I have every right. I own this building. I organized this event, albeit unwittingly. And I have security footage of you taking items that belong to me from my house without permission. That's called theft, Simon. Even in a divorce. Marcus appeared at the edge of the crowd, tablet in hand, his expression professional. Ms. Vance, we have a situation. The gentleman is becoming disruptive. Should we activate the termination clause? Clara pretended to consider. Has he made any threats? Attempted to have me removed from the premises? Approximately 17 seconds ago, he threatened to have security remove you. That constitutes harassment of Solstice Logistics personnel, which triggers Section 12, subsection 4 of his contract. I see. Clara turned back to Simon, whose face had gone from purple to ashen as he realized what was happening. Simon, did you read the contract before you signed it on Wednesday? What does that have to do with? Section 12, Subsection 4 states that any harassment or attempted removal of Solstice Logistics personnel terminates the contract immediately. All fees become non-refundable and the client becomes liable for damages. Clara's smile was razor-sharp now. You just tried to have me, the CEO of Solstice Logistics, removed from my own building during an event I'm hosting. That's a breach of contract. She nodded to Marcus. Shut it down. Wait, Simon lunged forward, grabbing Clara's arm. You can't do this. You can't just... Two security guards appeared instantly, pulling Simon's hand off Clara with professional efficiency. Sir, you need to step back, one of them said firmly. This is my party. I paid for this. You can't. Actually, Marcus said, consulting his tablet, according to the contract you signed, all fees paid become non-refundable upon termination for cause. The $175,000 you paid, or rather, that Ms. Vance's money paid, is now property of Solstice Logistics. Additionally, you're liable for damages including staff time, lost revenue, and reputational harm. How much? Lena's voice was small, terrified. Preliminary assessment? Marcus didn't even blink. Approximately $340,000. The exact amount Mr. Thorne has stolen from joint accounts over the past 6 months. Interesting coincidence, isn't it? The crowd was loving this. Phones were everywhere. Clara could see Instagram stories being posted in real time, TikTok videos being uploaded, tweets being composed. Simon Thorne's public humiliation was being documented from 17 different angles. You vindictive bitch, Simon hissed, all pretense of civilization gone now. You've been planning this. You've been waiting to destroy me. No, Simon. Clara's voice was soft but carried to every corner of the room. I've been waiting for you to destroy yourself. I just gave you enough rope and you did exactly what entitled men always do. You hanged yourself with it. She turned to address the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption to your evening. Unfortunately, due to contract violations, this event is now terminated. However, the bar will remain open for another hour as my guests, and dessert will be served complimentary. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. Clara, please, Simon's voice cracked.
Don't do this. We can talk about this.
We can. We're done talking. We've been done for years. I just didn't realize it. Clara pulled an envelope from her clutch and handed it to him. This is a full accounting of every dollar you've stolen, every asset you've claimed that was actually mine, and a lawsuit for fraud, theft, and emotional distress. My lawyer will be in touch about the criminal charges on Monday. She turned to Lena, who was crying now, mascara running down her face. And I actually feel sorry for you. You thought you'd won the lottery landing a man like Simon. Successful, wealthy, established. But he was never any of those things. He was just a mediocre man living off his wife's money and success while telling everyone he was self-made. You didn't steal my husband, Lena. You inherited my problem. Good luck with that. Clara started to walk away, then paused, turned back. Oh, and Simon? You're fired. Harrison Tech will be receiving notice of your termination on Monday morning. Effective immediately. Your severance package is whatever's left in that joint account you drained, which I believe is currently $47. The crowd parted as Clara walked through them, her head high, her shoulders back. Patricia and Diane were waiting at the edge of the room, both of them grinning like wolves. That was beautiful, Patricia said, pulling Clara into a hug. That was legendary, Diane corrected. You just became a social media icon. The videos are already going viral. Clara didn't look back at Simon, still standing in the center of the ruined party, his mistress crying beside him, his life falling apart in real time. She'd spent 20 years being invisible, being dismissed, being treated like she didn't matter. Tonight, she'd reminded the world, and more importantly, herself, that quiet women weren't weak. They were just waiting for the right moment to show exactly how powerful they'd always been. And when that moment came, they didn't just win. They demolished. What would you say to someone who underestimated you for 20 years if you had the chance to confront them publicly? Drop it in the comments. And if you're absolutely living for Clara's revenge right now, subscribe because what happened next is going to show you the aftermath. And trust me, this story gets even better. You won't want to miss what happens next. Clara made it to the parking garage before the adrenaline crash hit. She leaned against her car, a modest Honda she drove to maintain her cover, and let herself shake for exactly 30 seconds. Then her phone rang. "Marcus, you need to come back upstairs.
Now.
We found something." 5 minutes later, Clara stood in the hotel's security office, staring at footage that made her blood run cold. "This is from 6 months ago," Marcus said, pulling up camera feeds from the Grand Beaumont's business center. "Simon came here with another man. We ran facial recognition. David Morrison, corporate attorney specializing in hostile takeovers." Clara watched as past Simon handed Morrison a folder. Even in grainy security footage, she could read the label, Solstice Logistics. "Keep watching," Marcus said grimly. The footage showed Morrison photographing documents, Clara's incorporation papers, her business licenses, articles about the director that mentioned C. Vance without photos. "He's been investigating you," Marcus said, "for months, maybe years." Clara's mind raced. He knew. Simon knew about Solstice. We found more. Emails between him and Morrison discussing a leverage strategy. They were planning to expose your identity publicly, then sue for fraud, claiming you had assets during the marriage to avoid community property laws. The betrayal went deeper than an affair. Simon hadn't just fallen out of love. He'd been planning to destroy her company, steal half of everything she'd built, and paint her as the criminal. When did this start? Clara's voice was barely a whisper. Marcus pulled up another file. "Based on the digital trail? 3 years ago, right after you made Forbes' list of anonymous billionaires. There was a blind item about a mystery mogul in Los Angeles. We think Simon saw it, did some digging, and figured out his wife was running Solstice. So the affair with Lena was part of the plan. Create a sympathetic narrative, devoted husband finally leaving his lazy wife for a woman who appreciates him. Then reveal you'd been hiding billions. In California's community property state, he'd be entitled to half of everything earned during the marriage." Clara felt sick. He would have taken Solstice, or forced me to pay him billions to keep it. "Except he made one mistake," Marcus said, pulling up a final document. "He filed for divorce first, before exposing you, which means the divorce is based on your current disclosed assets, essentially nothing. If he tries to claim you hid money now, he'll have to prove he didn't know about it during the marriage. But he did know. You have proof. We have proof he knew and chose to file anyway, which means he can't claim fraud now. He locked in his $50,000 settlement the moment he filed those papers." Marcus smiled. Simon tried to play chess with a grandmaster, and he just checkmated himself. Clara looked at the evidence of Simon's 3-year plan to destroy her and felt something shift. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about survival. "Show me everything," she said. "Every email, every meeting, every piece of evidence. Simon wanted to take my company. Now I'm going to make sure he never gets close to it, or me ever again." The war had just escalated, and Clara was done playing defense. Have you ever discovered someone's betrayal went deeper than you imagined? What did you do? Comment below and subscribe. Next shows Clara's countermove, and it's devastating. The viral videos hit the internet before Clara even made it home. By midnight, hashtags were trending worldwide. By Monday morning was #1, referring to Clara's promise to have Simon fired. Wife Revenge had 17 million views. Billionaire in Disguise was spawning think pieces about hidden female wealth and underestimated women. Clara should have felt victorious. Instead, she sat in her home office at 2 a.m., watching her entire carefully constructed private life disintegrate across social media. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Business reporters demanding interviews. Tech blogs wanting to profile the director finally revealed. Investment firms asking about Solstice going public. Entertainment shows requesting appearances. And then the other calls started coming. Her personal cell, the number only family and close friends had, began ringing with unknown numbers. When she finally answered one, a man's voice came through cold and threatening. "Clara Vance? You just made a very expensive enemy. Destroying Simon Thorne in public wasn't smart. His family has connections you can't imagine. Lawyers who will bury you. I'd start preparing for the fight of your life." The line went dead before Clara could respond. Marcus called at 2:47 a.m. "We have a problem. Multiple problems, actually." "Tell me." First, Simon's retained Morrison and Associates, the firm that was already investigating you. They're filing emergency injunctions in family court claiming you hid assets during the marriage. They're arguing the divorce should be voided and all assets subject to community property division. Clara's stomach dropped. Can they do that? If they can prove you deliberately concealed your ownership of Solstice to defraud Simon during the divorce, maybe. It's a long shot, but judges have surprised us before. Marcus paused. That's not the worst part. What's the worst part? Simon's family is the Thorne family, as in Thorne Industries, as in one of the oldest, wealthiest families in California, with political connections going back 4 generations. I married into that family 20 years ago. I know who they are. No, Clara, you don't. You married Simon, who was basically the family disappointment, the cousin nobody took seriously. But now you've humiliated him publicly, and the family is circling wagons. His uncle Charles Thorne just released a statement calling you a gold digger who entrapped a naive young man and built your fortune by stealing his family's business connections and trade secrets. Clara felt ice in her veins. That's completely false. Doesn't matter. It's out there now. And the Thorne family owns media outlets, has judges on their payroll, and can make your life extremely difficult. Marcus's voice was grim. Clara, they're not just coming after you legally. They're coming after Solstice. They're filing complaints with business bureaus, planting stories about your company being unethical, contacting your clients with concerns about your credibility. They can't destroy a billion-dollar company with rumors. No, but they can damage it enough to hurt. I've already had 3 clients call asking if it's true you've been operating under false pretenses. 2 are threatening to pull their contracts unless you can prove the allegations are false. And Clara, proving you didn't steal trade secrets or manipulate connections is almost impossible. How do you prove a negative? Clara's hands were shaking. She'd expected legal retaliation. She'd prepared for Simon to fight back. But this, A coordinated attack from one of California's most powerful families, designed to destroy not just her personally, but the company she'd spent 20 years building. She hadn't seen this coming. "What do we do?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded. "Legally, Helena is already preparing our defense. But Clara, this is going to be ugly. Really ugly. The kind of court battle that takes years and costs millions and gets dragged through every tabloid in the country." After hanging up, Clara tried to sleep but couldn't. At 6 a.m., she gave up and went to make coffee, only to find Diane on her doorstep with Patricia behind her. "We saw the news," Patricia said, sweeping into the house without invitation. "The Thorns released another statement an hour ago. They're claiming you seduced Simon specifically to gain access to their family's business network. That's insane. I didn't even know Simon was a Thorn when we met. He used his middle name. I know it's insane. But they've got a PR team spinning a narrative that you're a scheming social climber who targeted their family." Diane pulled up her phone, showing Clara a news article. "Look at this headline. Mystery mogul or marriage fraud? The dark truth about Clara Vance." Clara read the article, feeling sicker with each paragraph. It painted her as a calculating predator who'd hidden her business from her husband while using his family name and connections to build Solstice. It mentioned events she'd supposedly attended with Simon where she'd networked aggressively with Thorne family associates. Never mind that Simon had rarely taken her anywhere. Never mind that she'd built Solstice before even meeting him. Never mind that she had documentation proving every timeline, every business deal, every success that had nothing to do with the Thorne family. None of that mattered when the Thorns controlled the narrative. "There's more," Patricia said quietly. "I got a call this morning from the university, where I've been on the board for 30 years. They're asking me to step down pending resolution of your family's situation. Clara, they're coming after me too. After Diane. They're trying to isolate you by destroying everyone connected to you." Clara felt the walls closing in.
Mom, no.
"You can't lose your board position because of me. I'm not losing anything. I told them to shove their board seat where the sun doesn't shine." Patricia's eyes flashed. "But sweetheart, you need to understand what you're up against. The Thorne family doesn't fight fair. They have resources and connections that—" Clara's phone buzzed. "Helena, her lawyer. Clara, we have an emergency. Judge Morrison, the one presiding over your divorce case, just recused himself, claiming conflict of interest. The new judge is Patricia Thorne, Simon's cousin. They've managed to get a Thorne family member assigned to your case. That can't be legal." "It's not. We're filing objections immediately. But until we can get her removed, which could take weeks, you're facing a judge who's biologically related to your opponent. And Clara, she's already granted Simon's emergency injunction. All your assets are frozen pending a full disclosure hearing." The phone slipped from Clara's hand. Frozen assets meant she couldn't access her accounts, couldn't pay her lawyers, couldn't operate Solstice, couldn't defend herself. The Thorne family had effectively paralyzed her with a single legal maneuver. "This is impossible," Clara whispered. "They can't just, but they could." And they were. Over the next 72 hours, Clara watched her life implode from every direction simultaneously. Monday morning, Harrison Tech announced Simon's termination was being reviewed due to concerns about the decision-making process. Translation: the Thorne family had pressured Clara's own company to not fire Simon. Monday afternoon, 3 major clients canceled their contracts with Solstice, citing reputational concerns. 2 were companies with Thorne family board members. Monday evening, a former employee came forward claiming Clara had created a hostile work environment and filed a lawsuit. The employee turned out to be Simon's cousin's daughter. The lawsuit was obviously coordinated, obviously false. But it didn't matter. The press ran with it. Tuesday morning, federal investigators announced they were looking into Solstice Logistics for potential tax irregularities. An anonymous tip, they said. Clara knew exactly who'd made that tip. Tuesday afternoon, someone leaked Clara's home address. By evening, protesters were outside her gate. Some supporting her, but many calling her a fraud, a liar, a woman who destroyed a good man's life. Tuesday night, Clara sat in her darkened house, watching news coverage that painted her as either a feminist icon or a manipulative villain, depending on the channel, while her assets stayed frozen, her company bled clients, and the Thorne family systematically destroyed everything she'd built. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. How does it feel? Simon's voice, slightly slurred.
Drunk.
You thought you could humiliate me and walk away clean. But my family is going to take everything from you. Your company, your money, your reputation. By the time we're done, you'll be the one begging on the streets. Simon, you should have just signed the papers and disappeared quietly. You should have taken the $50,000 and been grateful. But no, you had to be dramatic. Had to destroy me in public. So now I'm returning the favor. Your family is filing false lawsuits, bribing judges, destroying innocent people's careers. My family is protecting what's ours. You stole our name, our connections, our reputation to build your little empire. Now we're taking it back. And Clara, there's nothing you can do to stop us. You're alone, powerless, exactly where you belong. The line went dead. Clara sat in silence, her phone in her lap, staring at nothing. He was right. She was alone. Her assets were frozen. Her company was hemorrhaging clients. The courts were stacked against her, and she was fighting one of the most powerful families in California with her hands tied behind her back. For the first time since this nightmare started, Clara felt genuine fear. Not of losing money, money could be rebuilt, but fear of losing Solstice, the company she'd built from nothing. Fear of watching 20 years of work destroyed by people who'd never built anything themselves, who only knew how to inherit and maintain and destroy. Her laptop chimed with an email. Marcus. Subject, I'm sorry. Body, Clara, I've been threatened. The Thorne family contacted me directly. They have information about my family, about mistakes I made years ago. They're threatening to destroy my sister's medical career if I don't step down as COO and testify that you misled investors about your credentials. I'm so sorry. I can't let them hurt my family. I'm resigning effective immediately. Clara read the email 3 times, then closed her laptop very carefully. Marcus was gone. Her COO, her right hand, her friend, bought off by threats against his family. She was truly alone now. Diane appeared in the doorway. Clara, are you okay?
No.
Clara's voice was hollow. No, I'm really not. What can I do? Nothing. There's nothing anyone can do. The Thornes have more money, more power, more connections. They have judges and politicians and media outlets. They're destroying everyone connected to me until I have no one left. She looked at her sister. You should distance yourself, Diane, before they come after you too. I'm not abandoning you. I'm not asking you to abandon me. I'm telling you to survive. This fight is over. I lost. Patricia entered behind Diane. Clara Vance, I did not raise you to give up. You raised me to pick battles I could win. This isn't one of them. Clara stood, exhausted beyond measure. I'm going to call Helena tomorrow and negotiate a settlement. I'll give the Thorns whatever they want to make this stop. The company, the money, whatever it takes to end this. Clara, no. Yes. Because I'm tired, Mom. I'm so tired. And I can't keep fighting when I'm drowning and they keep adding weights. Clara's voice cracked. I thought I was strong enough. I thought exposing Simon would be enough. But I was wrong. The Thorns are proving that power isn't about truth or justice or being right. It's about who has more resources to destroy the other person. And they have more. She walked past her mother and sister, headed for the stairs. I'm going to bed. Tomorrow I'll start negotiating my surrender. In her bedroom, Clara lay. In the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of defeat crushing her chest. She'd been so sure, so confident that exposing Simon would be her victory. But she'd forgotten the most important rule of warfare: never underestimate your enemy's ability to reinforce. She'd humiliated one man. His entire family had mobilized to destroy her in response. And they were winning. For the first time in 20 years, Clara Vance had no plan, no strategy, no path forward. She'd hit rock bottom, and she didn't know how to climb back up. What would you do if a powerful family came after everything you'd built? Would you keep fighting or surrender to save yourself? Drop a comment and let me know. And if you're still with Clara despite everything, subscribe, because next is the turning point. And what happens next will remind you why you never count out a woman who's been underestimated her whole life. Clara woke at 5 a.m. to someone pounding on her front door. She ignored it, pulling the covers over her head. Let them pound. Let the protesters scream. Let the Thorn family win. She was done. The pounding continued. Then her phone rang.
Diane.
Open the door, Clara.
Right now.
Go away. I said open the door. You have 30 seconds or I'm using the spare key, and you know I will. Grudgingly, Clara dragged herself downstairs and opened the door to find not just Diane, but Patricia, Helena the lawyer, and a woman Clara had never seen before, elderly, elegant, with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Who? This is Margaret Thorne, Patricia said, ushering everyone inside. Simon's grandmother. And she has something you need to hear. Clara stared. Why would Simon's grandmother help me? Margaret settled into Clara's living room chair like she owned it. Because my grandson is an entitled little shit who's been coasting on family money his entire life. And because my son Charles is a bully who's using the family's resources to destroy a woman who built something real. She pulled out a folder. Also because I've spent the last 3 days reviewing what you've actually accomplished, and I'm impressed. You're impressed enough to help me fight your own family? Darling, I've been fighting my own family for 60 years. Charles thinks he runs Thorn Industries because I retired. He's wrong. I still own 47% of company stock. I just let him think he's in charge because it keeps him manageable. Margaret's smile was sharp. But using family resources to wage personal vendettas? That crosses a line even for us. Helena leaned forward. Margaret came to me yesterday. She's willing to testify that the Thorn family's attacks on you are coordinated harassment, that Judge Patricia Thorn should be removed for bias, and that Simon knew about your business long before filing for divorce. She also brought evidence, Diane added, pulling documents from Margaret's folder, including emails from 3 years ago where Simon explicitly discussed Solstice logistics with his family.
He knew Clara.
He knew the whole time, and his family knew he knew. Clara's hands shook as she read the emails. Simon to Charles Thorne. Found out Clara's been running that Solstice company. The one worth billions. Playing the long game here, waiting for the right moment to cash out. Charles's response, smart. Let her think you're clueless. Document everything about how she hid it from you. When you're ready to move, we'll back you legally. Take her for everything. This is 3 years old, Clara whispered. Which means Simon knowingly filed for divorce without disclosing that he knew about your assets, Helena said. That's fraud, Clara. He committed fraud, not you. And with Margaret's testimony, we can prove it. Why? Clara looked at Margaret. Why are you doing this? He's your grandson. He's also a disappointment who's never worked for anything in his life. My husband built Thorne Industries from nothing. I helped him, stood beside him through every setback. We believed in earning what you have, not stealing it from people who actually built something. Margaret's expression softened slightly. You remind me of myself 50 years ago, Clara. Smart, driven, underestimated by every man in the room. I'll be damned if I let my family destroy you the way they tried to destroy me. Patricia spoke up. Margaret came to me first. We've known each other for 40 years, sat on charity boards together. She told me what Charles was planning, and I told her what you'd accomplished. We agreed that the Thorne family has gotten away with bullying people for too long. So, what do we do? Clara asked, feeling the first spark of hope in days. We fight back, Helena said. With Margaret's testimony, we get Judge Patricia removed for conflict of interest and get your assets unfrozen. Then we file countersuits, fraud against Simon, harassment against Charles Thorne personally, and judicial misconduct against Judge Patricia. And I handle the public relations nightmare, Diane added. With Margaret on our side, we have a Thorne family member vouching for you. That changes the narrative completely. But your family, Clara said to Margaret. Charles will retaliate against you. Let him try. I'm 83 years old, and I've survived 2 husbands, 3 recessions, and Charles's incompetent leadership for 20 years. I'm not scared of my own son. Margaret stood, straightening her jacket. Besides, I'm tired of watching entitled men destroy brilliant women because they can't stand being outshined. It's time someone stood up to Charles. Might as well be his mother. Clara felt something shift in her chest. She wasn't alone. She'd thought the Thorne family was united against her, but Margaret had just shattered that assumption. There's one more thing, Helena said carefully. Marcus called me this morning. The threats against his sister? They came from a lawyer Charles Thorne hired, not from any legitimate investigation. Marcus has proof. He wants to come back, testify about the intimidation tactics, and help us fight back. He's not the only one, Diane added. 3 of the clients who pulled their contracts? They got calls from me explaining the situation. With Margaret backing you, 2 of them want to reinstate. They were pressured into leaving, not genuinely concerned. Clara looked around at the women in her living room. Her mother, her sister, her lawyer, and a woman who'd chosen to betray her own family to help a stranger fight for justice. For 3 days, she'd felt powerless, defeated, alone. But she wasn't alone. She'd never been alone. What do you need from me? Clara asked, her voice strengthening. We need you to be who you've always been, Patricia said firmly. The woman who built a billion-dollar empire from nothing. The woman who saw Simon's trap and walked into it anyway because she was 3 steps ahead. The woman who doesn't back down just because the fight got harder. Clara stood, feeling clarity cut through the fog of defeat. Then we go back to court. We present the evidence. We expose everything the Thorne family has done. And we don't just win, we make sure they can never do this to anyone else again. That's my girl, Margaret said with satisfaction. Charles thought he could intimidate you into surrendering. He forgot that some women get more dangerous when you corner them. Helena pulled out her phone. I'm filing emergency motions this morning. By tomorrow, you'll have your assets back and Judge Patricia will be off your case. By next week, we'll be on offense instead of defense. And I'm scheduling a press conference, Diane added. With Margaret. Let's see Charles spin this when his own mother is calling him out publicly. Clara walked to her office, pulled out her laptop, and for the first time in 3 days, logged into Solstice's secure network. Messages from employees flooded her screen. Words of support, offers to help, rage at the attacks against their CEO. She wasn't fighting this battle alone. She had an army of people who believed in her, who'd seen what she'd built and refused to let it be destroyed by entitled men who'd never created anything themselves. Clara composed a message to all Solstice employees. I'm back. The rumors are lies, the attacks are coordinated harassment, and we're going to win. Thank you for standing with me. Now, let's show the world what happens when you try to destroy something built on truth and hard work. CV within minutes. Responses poured in. Solidarity. Anger. Determination. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, I'm so sorry I doubted. I'm ready to fight. What do you need? Clara smiled. A real smile. Fierce and certain. I need you back as COO. I need you to help me dismantle a family that thinks power comes from intimidation instead of innovation.
Can you do that?
His response was immediate. Already drafting my testimony. Let's destroy them. Clara looked at the women in her living room, at the evidence spread across her coffee table, at the path forward that had seemed impossible 3 days ago. She'd hit rock bottom. But rock bottom had turned out to be solid ground, the perfect foundation to push off from and rise higher than before. The Thorne family had made one critical mistake. They'd assumed Clara would stay down when they knocked her over. They'd forgotten she'd spent her entire life being underestimated, dismissed, counted out. And every single time, she'd risen stronger than before. Let's go to war, Clara said quietly. But this time, we fight to win permanently. Have you ever found strength in your darkest moment? Ever discovered allies when you thought you were alone? Comment below. And subscribe because what happens next is where Clara takes everything back, and the Thorne family learns why you should never underestimate a quiet woman who's decided to roar. Part 8. Climactic resolution rewritten. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters when Clara arrived for the final hearing. Margaret Thorne walked beside her, spine straight, daring anyone to question why she was betraying her own family. Inside, Judge Rodriguez surveyed the packed courtroom with sharp eyes. Charles Thorne sat rigid beside Simon, both men radiating fury barely contained. Their team of 6 lawyers looked less confident than they had a week ago. Helena stood. Your Honor, will be brief. The evidence speaks for itself. She projected the first email on the courtroom screens. Simon to Charles, dated 3 years prior. Clara's company is worth $3.2 billion. I'm documenting everything to prove she hid it from me. When I file for divorce, we split it 50-50ths. Charles's response. Perfect. We'll back you completely. The Thorne family takes care of its own. Simon's face went white. Those emails are privileged. They're evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud. Helena cut him off smoothly. Mr. Thorne knew about Solstice for 3 years. He stayed married specifically to establish community property claims. Then he filed for divorce, claiming ignorance, while simultaneously planning to expose Clara's business and demand half. Judge Rodriguez leaned forward. Mr. Thorne, you signed a divorce settlement accepting $50,000 just 2 weeks ago. Are you now claiming you didn't know what you were signing? Simon's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client was under duress. From what? His own greed. The judge's voice was ice. He orchestrated this entire situation, filed for divorce on his terms, then tried to change those terms when his plan backfired. Helena continued, pulling up bank records. Furthermore, Mr. Thorne spent $340,000 from joint accounts on his affair over 6 months. Money that actually belonged to Ms. Vance, since the account was funded by her corporation's payroll. He literally stole from his wife to finance his mistress, then demanded his wife's savings to pay for that mistress's birthday party. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Cameras clicked furiously. Marcus took the stand next. I received threats from the Thorne family's lawyer. They told me they'd destroy my sister's medical career if I didn't resign from Solstice and testify against Clara. I have recordings of those conversations. He played them. The courtroom listened to threats, intimidation, evidence tampering offers. Charles Thorne's face went from red to purple. Your Honor, Helena said, the Thorne family didn't just support Simon's fraud. They actively conspired to destroy Ms. Vance's business through illegal means.
Witness intimidation, judicial corruption, client harassment.
This wasn't a divorce dispute. This was organized harassment. Judge Rodriguez addressed Charles directly. Mr. Thorne, you're facing criminal charges for witness tampering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and corruption. Your family's legal team will be investigated by the Bar Association. Your companies will be audited. She turned to Simon. Mr. Thorne, you committed perjury, fraud, and theft. I'm referring your case to the district attorney. You're also liable for repayment of the $340,000 you stole, plus damages. Furthermore, your divorce settlement stands as signed. You get $50,000. Ms. Vance keeps everything else. That's not fair, Simon shouted, jumping to his feet. She hid billions from me. She built billions while married to you. The judge corrected coldly. There's a difference. And you knew about it for 3 years but chose to file for divorce anyway. That was your choice, Mr. Thorne. Live with it. She banged her gavel. This case is closed. Bailiff, Mr. Simon Thorne is remanded to custody pending criminal proceedings. The courtroom erupted as officers approached Simon. He looked at Clara with pure hatred. You destroyed me. Clara met his eyes calmly.
No, Simon.
You destroyed yourself. I just refused to go down with you. Outside, Clara stood before a sea of cameras with Margaret, Helena, and Marcus flanking her. Today, justice was served, Clara said. Not just for me, but for every woman who's been underestimated, stolen from, or told she doesn't deserve what she built. The Thorne family learned an expensive lesson. Power isn't about who you can intimidate. It's about what you can create. And they created nothing but destruction. Margaret added, I'm ashamed of what my family attempted. We'll be making this right. As Clara walked to her car, her phone exploded with messages.
Client reinstating contract.
Employees celebrating. Women across the country thanking her for fighting back. Clara Vance had won completely. And she'd done it by being exactly what Simon had always dismissed her as, smarter, stronger, and infinitely more strategic than he'd ever imagined possible. What would you say to someone who tried to destroy you if you won this completely? Comment below and subscribe and be part of this YouTube family. We need you. We want you. We cherish you. Thank you for listening this far.